know, it's not that I think that self-transformation was not important in the past, but I think it's more pertinent right now that we as individuals and as teams, but particularly as individuals, really look at the tools that we have and have always had innately to transform ourselves. I mean, look, there are many sort of self-help books out there and workshops and courses, but and those are all good, but what we tend to find are people that love these things but continue to take these courses and read these books and nothing's happening. You know, it's been said we're showing up for class but we're never graduating. I really feel right now with whatever's going on, some people have called it the shift. In fact, I refer to that, use that term in my book, Conscious Musings. Of course, there was a lot of talk about the Mayans and the 2012 being a pivotal turning point. I don't know whether there was any acute turning point, but we are in some sort of a shift. A lot of people can feel it. It may be going on for a long time. And so I believe that self-transformation is urgent now. It's vital. Call it God, call it the universe, whatever you want to call it. Something's beckoning us for us to really begin to wield our own power, that which I think we kind of forfeited. Maybe we're not consciously aware of it, but I think indeed we have. So I think now is the time, cliche as it may sound. There are people that are doing that now. They're transforming themselves in very, very unique and creative ways. But I do feel that there's some urgency that's pushing us. I mean, we can look at the surface of things, we can look at economic conditions, and we can look at the wars and other such crises that are taking place right now. And those all sort of represent what's happening. But I think people feel there's an intangible also involved. People don't know quite how to put their finger on it, but they feel that something's some people feel that things are out of kilter. Some people just have a sort of an anxious feeling like something is about to shift. If that is to occur, my argument is that we need to take the responsibility to shift ourselves so we can go with the tide and not against it. Well, you know, we live in a society that is predicated on reaction. We look at our world around us, mainly our television sets now, our devices, the jobs that we perform, the lives that we lead, and everything is moving so fast. We are in a perpetual state of reaction. When you're in a state of reaction 24/7, there's little or no time to be in a state of reflection. We talk about self-transformation as being, you know, taking responsibility at any given time, and I know everybody has busy lives. We probably will always have, but I think if we can set boundaries, realize that we are most of the time on a hamster wheel, step off of that wheel every once in a while and say, let me get quiet for a minute. Let me just think about what I just said to my boss, or what email just came in, before I just knee-jerk react and send that person something that maybe I didn't want to do. I think it begins with those little things, and then we can start, once we can start getting into a mode of reflection, getting into a habit of reflection, we'll start reflecting on bigger things. And I go into that in great deal in the book. I think so. I think so. Unfortunately, you know, our mainstream media, and when I say media, I'm not just speaking of news programming, but all programming, including commercials, have been very, very, what do I want to say? They have been very meticulous in capturing 100% of the public's attention. You know, I say we are sort of tethered to our ever-growing television sets and our ever-shrinking devices, and it's so difficult now to not build a world outside of these frame-by-frame images. I can't help but wonder whether that was intentional, to keep us in a state of focus on them, Now you could argue, and I say them, I'm speaking of all that are a part of this world we call media, of which I came from, mainstream media, quite a few years ago. But the goal, as any media person knows, is to keep the eye of the person that's watching on you, on the program, on the commercial, buy the products, do this, do that. I can't help but think that that isn't intentional. The ramifications, however, I think are far greater than we know. If you can move into a state of reflection, you might realize what's happening here. That you are beginning to adopt and mimic much of the language that's being spoken through programming. We talk about reality TV, the behavior that's being proliferated throughout the themes of these shows. And I'm not saying that these things are bad, but they are not our reality. They're another reality that has been dedicated to luring the masses into paying attention to them versus paying attention to themselves. And so yes, I do think that that is intentional, but again, going back to this urgency of now for self-transformation, we need to realize that's what's been going on and make a responsible decision to turn off that TV. Every once in a while, I'm not saying throw it out your window, although I know some people now have done that. I think they're realizing that, you know, I'm not feeling too good as I'm watching this television program and this news broadcast, and something's going on here. I'm not feeling too good when I'm constantly on my cell phone. We need to realize, again, you know, bring back our sovereignty. It's what I like to say, our spiritual sovereignty, and bring ourselves back to equilibrium. Yes, I do feel that it's been an intentional sort of migration from self to them. Going back to modern society and the trends that we see, there's something that William White, who wrote an article in Fortune magazine, I believe back in 1952, called groupism. I can't call the exact title, but basically he stated that, you know, the masses have been sort of lured into a state of collective thinking, of compliance, that you're rewarded for compliance to the overall, to the group thought, and almost scorned for thinking on your own. And I tend to agree with that. You know, we talked, I think, a little bit before about behavior being, or language being replicated. You hear, you know, one word or a phrase that's introduced into the societal vernacular, and before you know it, everyone's saying it. You know, there's a new term called selfie, when you take a picture of yourself with your cell phone. That was a term, I believe, introduced only months ago, and it is amazing to me how now everyone is simply mimicking that word. In other words, I watch that very carefully. That, to me, is a little bit dangerous, because it's saying that you're not really in control of your own identity. You're acting along with the collective. You know, it can be fun at times, I suppose, but I do think that it's important to maintain identity. I want to give an example. In the book I talk about, excuse me, the late physicist David Bohm, who talked about, he likened individuals as whirlpools in a stream. You look at little whirlpools forming in a body of water, and you see them in the body of water, but they have identity. We are like whirlpools in a stream. We have identity, we just don't have distinct borders. You know, some may be asking, you know, well, what about the we are all one, and that's how we transform? Well, sure, we can work together. Maybe we are a part of a continuum of consciousness, but that doesn't mean that we should all be identical to one another. We have identity, and we should exert that identity proudly. You know, I have always, the work that I have done as a researcher has sort of tied together human personality, human behavior, and these anomalies we call paranormal or supernatural in our life. Now, what is paranormal? I mean, you could look at something like something as common as intuition or synchronicity, you know, to incidents that happen that sort of coincide and bring about a meaning for someone. Or we can talk about ghostly phenomena, life after death communication. All of these things sort of are under the umbrella of paranormal phenomena. But here's the point that I make in the book, all sort of leading back to the theme of realizing our potential and all the means by which we can do that. Most people have had what we would call an anomalous experience in their life. It may be a precognitive dream, dreaming of something that ends up happening, playing out in real life later on, or seeing the ghostly remnants of a loved one, or hearing their voice. I mean, it goes on and on. Those are some of the things that we hear more about, out-of-body experiences. But the point I want to make is that oftentimes, because we don't know what bucket to put these experiences in, we deny them. In fact, I find it very interesting. You know, I talk to so many people across the board who have had experiences, and they're either afraid to talk about them for fear of ridicule, or they exert pride over their being skeptical about such matters. You know, I look at people, interestingly, people like Sir Isaac Newton, who's considered the father of classical physics, the father of the sticks and stones, nicely behaved universe that we've all come to know. Many people don't realize that he himself was a mystic and that he experienced a lot of paranormal phenomena, and it's said that a lot of these psychic experiences really informed his model, ironically. I think that's somewhat off the record, but such is the case. I say that to say that the people who have really been change makers in our history are those that have considered what we call paranormal or supernatural part of the underpinnings of reality, not an phenomenon of it. And so I make the point in the book trying to tie together the first section, which is really kind of taking a snapshot of human behavior and habits, and now graduating over to, now you've got this whole history of paranormal phenomena that has happened, you know, since recorded human history, and it's happening to this day. It may actually be accelerating based on this shift. We can talk about that a little bit later. Perhaps the universe is beckoning us to say, you have to pay attention here. Don't just shrug this off. Investigate it. Again, as sovereign individuals, part of the self-transformation process is to investigate these sorts of things. Sure, it may not fit into the bucket that you have been taught, that you now call your worldview, your belief systems, but you know, there's nothing wrong with suspending beliefs for a little while and being very objective about what you experienced. You may not get the answer right away, but you'll certainly, just the fact that you're doing that peeking a little bit, I think will start to maybe give you a little bit more insight as to who we really are, how reality really works. One of my absolute favorite quotes in the world is by a late physicist and philosopher named Richard Feynman. This is part of a larger quote, but the caption that I like is, "It does no harm to the mystery to know a little bit about it. It does no harm to the mystery." Life is big. It's mysterious. We're not necessarily going to know everything, at least not on a conscious level, but that doesn't mean we should turn our back on it. And I really think that paranormal experience, supernatural experience, or what we call psychic experience, is something that is inherently a part of us. So why would you turn your back on it? This, to me, is part of the transformational process. And it all folds in, frankly, to when you're out of reaction mode and you get into reflection mode, you start to reflect on these things. Sit quietly and say, what's going on here? You know, I have had, since I can remember, a predisposition to having what we call precognitive dreams. I would dream of something. It could be a big deal or something extraordinarily mundane, but it caught my attention because invariably a day or two later it would happen. And I thought to myself, what's going on here? You know, I have a feeling there's more to reality, and maybe more to me than I think. And it happened so frequently, and it still does, that to this day I'm asking that question. I don't have a definitive answer, but that's not going to stop me from exploring that mystery. I think that those are very, very critical steps that it's going to take for us to start that personal transformation process right now. That's certainly a part of it, maybe not the whole thing. So it's fascinating to me, and I have talked to, my gosh, in my really close to 15, 20 years of research, so many individuals off the street, in work environments, wherever, family members, who all have had, and for some reason they want to come to me and tell me about it, I wonder why, but they all have some story to tell. And yet, here's something that I hear very, very often: I've never told anyone this before. Invariably, the very people that you probably like to tell have had their own experiences. We've got to start sharing. Once we start sharing, sure, the rabbit hole gets a bit deeper, but the answers come a little bit clearer as well. So I do feel that's important. I think human beings are inherently, innately I should say, psychic. That word is a little scary because I think people, when you think of the word psychic, you think of notions of the television psychics and the dark room and the very sort of cryptic environment. No, no, no. What we call in academia psi, PSI, or which also means psychic phenomena, is simply saying that we have, each and every one of us has apparently a tinge of this in us. We don't know why some people are more psychically inclined than others. I mean, that's like saying, why can't everyone play basketball like Michael Jordan, or golf like Tiger Woods? You may be able to go out and throw a basketball, and you know how to do it, and you'll get better at it, but you're not going to be, a superstar at it. So not everyone's going to be a psychic superstar, but I do think that it is part of our fundamental makeup to be psychic and certainly intuitive. And frankly, skills like intuition are things that can be taught. I feel it is absolutely essential that we make recognizing our intuition first and then following it fundamental to our daily practice. I remember when I was in business years ago, and I was being interviewed by a women's magazine, and she said, "What is the secret to your success?" To whatever extent that success was. And I said, well, frankly, most of my decisions are made at the end of the day intuitively. We can look at the papers, we can look at the spreadsheets, we can look at the, what seems black and white, but there are a lot of shades of gray, and that gray may be that intuition that's nudging us to sign that contract or not sign that contract, to take that job or not take that job, or to turn left versus right when you're backing out of your driveway. That's intuition. It does take training to sort of understand how it works, because it's very subtle, it's often metaphorical. But the bottom line is, yes, I believe that we are hardwired to be both psychic and to utilize our intuition. Remember, we're part of this big body of water. We're the whirlpools in the stream, but you cannot extract those whirlpools. So that means we're connected to it. It's a big body of water with a lot of abilities. All we need to do is figure out how to tap it. I think that there are a lot of things. Some of them are, readily practiced. Some of them are, are discovered through personal exploration. Certainly, we've heard it a million times. I think that meditation, what I prefer to just call silence, and making periods of silence throughout the day. I don't care how busy you are. You can take 10 minutes out of your day to sit and breathe and allow yourself to kind of recalibrate with the universe. Interesting things can happen there. I've talked to so many people, including myself, in states of meditation where I have had unexplainable experiences, insights that seem to come arbitrarily, but they came. I believe that we can mine our dreams. We can mine our dreamscape. Dreamscape to me is like a landscape. It just doesn't operate quite the same way as our waking state. But it is, and I devote a whole chapter in the book to mapping manifestation through the dreamscape, in which I talk about very well-known names like Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla, as well as Paul McCartney, who actively use their dreams to mine answers to very, very difficult questions. In the case of Einstein and Tesla, of course, we're talking mathematical equations. And in the case of Paul McCartney, musical composition just sort of floated his way into the dreamscape. I believe it was the song Yesterday. This is well documented that people have been using, our thought leaders in particular, our change makers, have been using dreams for millennia to answer questions that would otherwise not be knowable. I talk about the Australian Aborigines and the Hawaiian Kahunas and Native Americans and other indigenous cultures who considered dream time a very, very, even more important than waking time. We have, when the physical senses are in full swing during our waking time, that's good, but I feel that they're finite at best. We have a whole nother landscape that can be traversed. And dreams, I really, really am a proponent of one mining, is like I say, mining gold, mining their dreams. And there are techniques that I do talk about in the book that we can use to do that. So all of those things, dreams, honing our intuition, meditation, can really kind of fine-tune what I think has just gone dormant in mankind for a lot of reasons. We in the West in particular don't put proper attention on these things. They don't fit within the nicely behaved universe that we're so accustomed to. So, they can elude us, it's true. But other cultures don't question the validity of these things. They just want to learn how to do it better. And again, as I go back to talking about the fact that we are in this proverbial shift, we're being beckoned by we're being nudged by something to shift ourselves. We're being nudged to transform ourselves. I don't know that we have much of a choice anymore. I don't think that this is a novelty notion anymore. I happen to think it's a pretty urgent thing that we start to hone our skill set in this area.